Thank you everyone for joining us for today's JMT and ADP, a new human capital management solution for your nonprofit. My name is Lynn Hogan. I'm a regional marketing coordinator here at JMT. We're very excited to have Ashley Ruggieri and Donald Garvey joining us today from ADP. So just a couple of housekeeping notes before I turn it over to Ashley and Donald. If you have any questions during the webinar today, please go ahead and submit them into the Q&A section as you think of them. We'll save them all until the end of the presentation, but don't hesitate to submit them as they come. Also, just a reminder that we'll send you both some handouts and the recording of today's webinar within 24 hours after it has concluded. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Ashley, to go ahead and get us started.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Really appreciate it. Really excited to be here with my colleague, Donald Garvey today. I am the sales consultant that works for ADP and liaisons with JMT. So again, excited to be here. We're going to kick it off with who is ADP. We could just switch the slide. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard the name before. We are quite a big organization. We're normally known for our bread and butter, which is payroll and tax, but we're so much more than that. We have over 700,000 clients, are constantly reinvesting in ourselves. And as you can see, we've been around for quite a long time. Specifically today, we are going to be speaking about our Workforce Now technology. And the great part about this technology is that it covers 3 of our 4, areas. So if you're looking at this suite of services, workforce technology is used in our PEO, which is a professional employment organization called Total Source. Our BPO, or managed services, which is what we call comprehensive services, and then our traditional HCM technology called, again, just Workforce Now. Within the technology, which is cloud-based and mobile capable, we are going to speak to our recruitment, HR, payroll and tax, benefits, and time and labor today. But as you can see, it covers a whole spectrum of offerings for your organization. Now, the really special part about ADP and the relationship with JMT is that we have an ERP connector. It was built a few years ago and showcased in our ADP marketplace. And since then, it's done so well that we've brought it in-house, if you'd like to say. And we have the ability to connect to Sage and Tax, but also a lot of other ERPs. So if you're not a Sage client, Sage and Tax client, then we still have the capability. And now our ADP marketplace houses about 200 different vendors that have been pre-vetted and secured and connect back to the technology. We are now going to hop into the actual demonstration with my colleague Donald today. As Lauren said, feel free to put questions in your question box or chat on the side. I'll be monitoring that as well, and then we can cover them at the end. Donald, you can take it away.
Perfect, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be walking us through the Workforce Now technology demonstration. My name is Donald Garvey, and what we're going to really jump into is a brief introduction of the portal and what the layout can look like for both you as company leaders, but also for your employees. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here with you folks in just a moment, and we're going to introduce that portal to you. So at this moment, you should be seeing on your screen my web browser that I'm sharing with you. This is an example of the ADP homepage within Workforce Now. And this is something that we see our clients setting up to not only serve the needs of company leaders, but also to support a self-service environment for their employees. You'll see that you have the ability to not only configure and customize this database from backgrounds to logos, but also for the content that you may want to place on this page. You can see that you can brand this with your organization, as well as place pertinent information that both you as company leaders and potentially your employees may be looking to view or access. Now, this is entirely configurable. So we understand that you may have a different homepage for your employees, and there may be a slightly different view for that of your company leaders. So you'll have the ability to manage that configuration based on how you want to roll this out, so it can truly serve as an intranet for you and your employees. Now, when we talk about this portal, it's going to serve as an effective workspace for you to really manage all the employee-related processes. But this is also going to be an effective tool for your employees to be able to stay connected to the organization. So whether it is signing off electronically acknowledging company policies or reviewing employee-related work-life information, this is going to be an area that they'll be able to access to not only perform some of those items related to different processes, whether it be time and attendance related or benefits related, but they also would have the ability to come in here and view their own personal information. So accessing an org chart, directory with company information, as well as their personal pay and work-related information. This is also a great snapshot to the HRIS capability and what we are able to track within the solution, from emergency contacts to company property, but also professional background, knowing that you may have licensing certifications that need to be tracked, so you are notified when they need to be renewed, but also giving your employees the ability to view and potentially update this record if appropriate. So that is another layer of configuration that can be offered. You have the ability to determine if employees are able to do or see certain things. So again, really helping to emulate the experience that you want to support for your different employees. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about self-service as we go through the conversation when we look at areas like recruitment or onboarding or benefits or even time and attendance. But I wanted to give you a good introduction to what they can view and potentially do on their end. So let's expand upon some of those tracking pieces that we just saw in the employee's profile. Obviously, as company leaders, we're going to have to make decisions and even track certain information for our different employees. And that's where your HRIS or your HR information system can come into play. So under people and process, these are areas that are typically reserved for our administrators or what we refer to as a practitioner or one of the chief users of the system. This is an area where you can not only track personal information in a personal profile similar to what we just viewed, but you're also able to manage and track different statutory related items within your system here as well. So if folks fall under any particular statuses, you're able to appropriately report on those items, as well as have really anything related to some of your reporting that needs to be done when you hire someone, for example. You see that you have the ability to process EEO information, which can connect directly to your reporting functionality. So you can pull some of these reports in a fileable capacity, which again is only going to help connect the dots between your HR information system and some of your obligations as employers. Just to switch things up here a little bit with another employee, you can also track OSHA and FMLA cases down below, just to help keep everything in one place as it refers to your system of record. Now, lastly, we talked a little bit about professional background when we talked about what an employee can see. We're also going to provide what's known as a talent profile. This is an excellent tool for you to track that background as administrators. It's also an effective tool for reporting. So you're not only able to see all the information here that ties to a specific employee, but you can be notified if something is expiring. That way you have the ability to either notify that employee or they are able to be directly notified of something that they may need to renew either on their own time or on organizational time. Now, this is also a great opportunity to highlight some of the reporting capabilities of the system. With any HR information system, we know that you are needing to report on this information for all types of reasons. So this is a way in which we are able to deliver custom reporting in an easy format that allows you to essentially turn any page within Workforce Now into a reportable function. You'll see that I now have the ability to essentially pick data off of the page and put that into a report so I can begin to understand what we may be looking to report on. If I'm beginning to pick these data points off a page and the system identifies, hey, you may be looking to process a similar report, it's going to give me both the standard reports provided in the system by ADP, as well as any custom reports that I may have built in the past. That way, if I know, hey, I'm looking to run that new hire report, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I simply reprocess that report so it's available to me. But again, just a very nice, easy, and effective way for you to report across the system, whether you are working out of one page or multiple pages. It will retain the data fields that you've selected and allow you to select additional items to add to that report. So with that being said, just to come out of our custom reporting tool here, one last profile that I want to reference, and we will return to this when we talk about payroll, is going to be a pay profile. So this essentially is going to be an indicator to each employee of not only the ability to access their pay summary, year-to-date information, but also their pay settings. So any deductions, direct deposit information, as well as tax withholding that will align to this employee for payroll purposes is available for viewing and maintenance in this particular profile. Now, as we round out the HRIS conversation, we'd be remiss if we did not inform you around the ability to store documentation. So having the ability to not only manage these different tracking items is wonderful, but we also know that you're going to want to have documentation to sometimes support these different tracking areas. This is where you'll have a space known as Document Cloud. And for lack of a better way of describing it, this is essentially an electronic filing cabinet for each and every one of your employees. So it will allow you to store items. It will also allow you to organize those items based on your organizational preferences. You'll see that you can create categories as well as subcategories that are going to support the different things that you may need to store in these areas. And like everything in the system, you have the ability to place security around these areas. So if there are certain categories, subcategories, or processing areas altogether that are only available for certain employees or team members, you have the ability to create that access permission to ensure that you're promoting the best security across your database. Lastly, whenever it comes to electronic document storage, you may want accountability around these items. So you not only have the ability to push out and roll out electronic signature to the employee that may have a document being updated, but you also have an employee audit function. So this will essentially tell you from a transactional standpoint, anything that has occurred in this space, even someone simply viewing a document. So again, this is a great way not only to promote an electronic HR system of record, but it is also a great way to move in a more paperless direction within your processes. So we will talk about this document storage function as well as those tracking profiles and how those are populated on the front end in just a few minutes when we talk about recruitment and onboarding to ADP. So with that being said, let's take a look at the front end and how we are able to drive information into these respected areas. That's always going to start with recruitment. So we do have a talent acquisition component to Workforce Now. This is something that will allow you to not only manage requisitions, but also applications in an applicant tracking function. Now, although we clicked on requisitions, this will all share a common recruitment space behind the scenes. This is where I'm able to access all of my current open jobs that we are looking to fill, but this is not going to limit me to just those open jobs. You see that I can create a new requisition at any time, or I may have created those in the past and simply have those on hold if they're seeking approval before we can advertise for those open positions, or possibly a closed requisition that I may hire for in the future. This can really serve as a function that not only helps to promote your open positions, but any position that you may need to hire from. And because we would be occupying the system of record component from an HR perspective, that data is going to be effectively used to help support these requisitions and driving that tracking information into the respected profiles. You can assign hiring managers to requisitions and even partner with job boards to ensure that you're getting and really casting the net that is needed to land the candidates that you're looking to hire. You'll also see, again, just basic tracking information that'll let me know, hey, we have current open applications here that are being reviewed on the applicant tracking side. So that would allow me to click on my second tab above to travel to the applicant tracking side of the solution. Before we do that, I did want to quickly highlight that we do have the ability, like we stated earlier, to not only manage the different job boards that you may be posting to, but we also have the ability for you to take advantage of our national partnership with ZipRecruiter, which allows you to cast either a very wide net for candidates or a very specific net depending on the position. You'll have career centers that you can use to promote in places like your website, but also to promote an electronic application experience for your employees. You'll also see that we can support referral programs, whether they have a monetary reward or not. And then again, down below, you see our ability to allow you to leverage ZipRecruiter job slots or advanced candidate sourcing as part of our national partnership. We also have a partnership with Job Target to help really expand the job sites that you may be posting to. And then, of course, any job or social media sites that you may be using today to support your application processes can also be connected to the system. Now, we do have a few that are set up on an automatic feed. So once you have approved a requisition, that job posting can be delivered to that site. But you also have the ability to link any other sites that you may use, like CareerBuilder, Monster, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. And this will simply allow you to post a requisition from a single place. So once you post the requisition from ADP, it is then sent to each respected site that you have connected to that requisition. So not only do you get valuable job sourcing information from those sites, but it also will prevent you from having to duplicate those efforts on each respected site that you use. So now that we've discussed how we can manage and push requisitions out to those different job sites, let's take a quick glimpse at what that looks like for someone who would be applying for a position. So when we talk about recruitment, you're able to not only push out to those respective job boards, but you're also able to create what we refer to as a career center. Now, this is something that allows you to take the URL that this is published to and put it in places like your website or any other types of digital media sites that you operate. You can customize the background, the logo, the header at the top. You also can customize the content that you see screening up above. And as we scroll down, it allows you to manage and prioritize positions based on what you're looking to fill. Candidates can also search for open positions depending on what they may be looking for. But you also can include additional information like a talent community. So if they don't see an open position but would love to join your organization, it allows them to submit basic information so you can reach out to them in the future. And you also can include documentation, videos, and any other digital media sites that you manage to be included down below. This is just a great way for you to really create an experience for a candidate so they can learn as much about your organization. If they find you on a job board and want to apply for a specific position, it will direct them straight to this page so they can perform an online application. And as to Ashley's earlier point, a lot of what we are able to maintain for not only your active employees, but for prospective candidates is optimized for mobile use. So this is also something that they can do directly on a mobile phone if they're most comfortable doing that. Like most applicant tracking systems, we do want to allow you to control that application experience. So that allows you to ask things like posting questions, include any type of screening information that may be relevant to perform background checks or anything like that down the road. And lastly, we will give them the ability to upload documentation. So if they're providing you with a resume, cover letter, transcripts, licensing and certification, that can all be uploaded. And our system is able to parse that information from documents like their resume to update their candidate profile. So let's take a look at what the candidate profile looks like upon completion of an application, so we can walk you through what a hiring process can look like. So in accessing our applicant tracking system, you're going to essentially be operating on that second tab where you're able to see really all of the information related to the data behind your recruiting process. You'll have application statuses that can be filtered on the left, and you'll have sourcing efficiency on the right. So we talked about being able to not only tie this to your process, but also to tie it to the job boards that you are using. So again, this is the ability to see what sources are most effective and potentially what sources you move away from in the future if you're not seeing the candidates coming from those respected areas. You'll have a full population down below. You also see that hiring managers can be listed out here as well, and that would give them visibility to only candidates and requisitions that they are assigned hiring managers for. So that's a great way to not only compartmentalize their view, but to delegate these responsibilities out to team leaders. And when it comes to accessing a specific application, you have the ability to select from your list view, or you can filter it from the population up above. If we click on an individual candidate, it's going to bring together everything that we've created so far, from the requisition and some of the tracking information behind it, as well as the information that was provided to us by the candidate when they filled out their application. So as we move down this page, I have everything here that I may need to contact this candidate, to engage them throughout the hiring process, and even perform any types of checks that I need to check in hiring this candidate. I can see other positions that they've applied for, so if I need to coordinate with that hiring manager, nobody's stepping on each other's toes. But I also can see their profile information on the left-hand column, and that would represent information that was parsed off of their resume. That way I'm able to perform the verifications that I may need to perform in potentially following up with former employment or checking on any of their licensing and certifications. You'll see that you have the ability to schedule interviews and evaluations right through the system. That way you're able to drive communication with templates. You'll see our background screening and selection component just below that, where again, in partnering with ADP, we can help to manage that information for those candidates when the timing is appropriate to perform those checks. And of course, notes and communications are always tracked. So that way, as you send out any templated communication, that will be tracked down below, so your process can always be consistently observed. And like everything we've discussed so far in ADP, those are customizable. So when you go to your actions, if you change an application status to move them into a new part of your hiring process, it's very quick and easy for you to set up that status. Those can be customized, of course. And then you have the ability to drive that communication with templates. So hiring managers or team members are not having to guess what that has to look like. And you also would have the ability to push those items out with a text message communication if the employee is willing to opt into that communication when they fill out their application. So just a great way for you to meet your candidates through multiple channels if needed. Now, lastly, when it comes to really reviewing a new hire, or a candidate for hire, you'll have the ability to not only export this record if needed, but you can share it with members of your team. And you're able to even manage the offer letter process completely electronically. So this will allow you, when they are in a make offer stage, to bring that template up, to customize it based on the offer letters that you can bring into our system. So it can be electronically communicated to that new hire, where they are then able to electronically accept that offer. Now, once accepted, we're able to hire this candidate. Now, this is one of the really nice aspects of a single database, is that when you hire a candidate, we simply want to package all of this information up. So everything that we built in a requisition, everything the candidate provided to us in their application, and essentially communicate that to the onboarding side of the house. So when we hire this candidate, it allows us to select a template that best represents the employee that we are hiring. Again, these are completely customizable outside of the quick hire template, so you can really support the information that you need to bring into the system. Now, one of the really nice parts about this is we want you to continue this process. So again, all information that was captured during recruitment will be communicated to the new hire record. That way, as we go through the onboarding process, we really want you to go into the capacity of managing information and verifying it each step of the way and entering new information as you learn it, rather than having to do that each and every time. Now, if we open up a new hire record here, you'll see that we can break this into multiple sections. This is also a great way that if you have multiple members of your team, some maybe in an HR capacity that will handle the personal and employment information, and then maybe some on the payroll or finance side that would handle that respective task, you can always delegate these individual steps out to ensure that everyone in your process can observe their role. But like we stated earlier, most of the personal information can drive directly into this template, and it will allow you to ask the new hire. We have an ability to say, hey, if we're missing anything from your personal record, here's your opportunity to supplement that. And that is delivered through our electronic onboarding experience. So that would allow you to send paperwork and policy-related information to your new hire, either prior to their first day of work electronically, or it's something that they can simply do with you electronically on day one, replacing the paperwork and the folders that typically occupied that process. Now, because of that, we want to allow you to bring information over from the recruitment side, but also, again, occupy the bare minimum of information that's needed to enter into this part of our process so you can get that paperwork out to your employee. They're not only able to be assigned an experience that represents their job title, but you're able to customize those regardless of the position. So that allows you to have unique experiences that may represent any potential role that you would support in hiring within your organizations. Now, of course, you can also include checklists. This would simply allow you to communicate internally, saying, hey, we have folks who are going to be starting next week. We may need to get XYZ items together. And of course, these are completely customizable, allowing you, again, just to centralize that communication. When a new hire record is created, you can not only get out the paperwork for the new hire to complete, but you can send out any items to managers, IT, or anyone else who may be gathering items for that employee's first day. So I want to show you a quick snapshot into what that onboarding paperwork looks like and some of the areas that we are able to help support when it comes to completing that new hire paperwork. So what we're going to do is log in as a brand new employee to not only your organization, but to the ADP Workforce Now tool as well. Now, again, this is something that you can send out prior to their first day of work, or it's something that you can do electronically with them on day one. When they access the system for the first time, because they would be considered an in-progress new hire, we are going to keep them in a siloed environment. That way they have really just that onboarding activity that they need to be worried about, and they are not going to be given access to the rest of the self-service capabilities that we saw earlier for your active employees. Now, upon completion of the new hire process, they will have that capability to view and manage work-life information as you see fit. But during this stage, they'll have the ability to not only view video content, understand who their team members are that they will be working with every day, but they also can access a profile where they can supplement their personal information with anything that may be missing. Just like during recruitment, we want to give them visibility to voluntary self-identification information, but we also want to give them that opportunity here during onboarding. So we have multiple ways to meet the employee so they can give us this information prior to their start date, as well as review their personal and contact information to ensure that we have everything correct on our record so far. And of course, paperwork is an area where we want to be able to support a lot of your new hire processes from the I-9, which we can support completely electronically in our system. This would be section 1 that the new hire is completing. You would have a dashboard to complete section 2 and even submit to E-Verify if you use them for verification of their identifying documents. And that's something that can be completely driven through, compliantly driven through the Workforce Now solution, from completion and access to long-term storage. Tax withholding information is also a big part of the onboarding process. And because we are managing things from a payroll and an HR information perspective, all you need to do is enter in the lived in and worked in information, and the system is able to align the tax withholding information based on those jurisdictions. Now, of course, they can electronically sign off on company policies. They also can electronically sign off on documentation like handbooks. So this is a great way for you to deliver those items within these respected spaces. And as you saw earlier, once completed, those company policies are communicated, so they're able to view those going forward as an employee, and the documents would be communicated to the document storage function that we showed you earlier. So it's a great way to connect the dots administratively, so you're not having to do that yourself once an onboarding process has concluded. Lastly, payment options, emergency contacts can be added in here by the employee if they are looking to receive direct deposit. And if there are any documents that you want to request from that new hire, here's your ability to request those different documents. They can upload them to the activity so you can access them as an organizational leader. Lastly, this is something that is designed, again, to be sent out prior to their first day of work. So we want to keep tabs on their progress, and we want to inform the new hire if there is anything that has been required by you, the administrator, that they still need to complete. We also want to allow them to quickly and easily download the mobile app so they are able to remain connected to the organization regardless of their location. Upon completion of the onboarding process and the start of their first week of work, we are going to then open this activity so they have regular access to the solution, just like your active employees would. But this is a great way not only to acclimate them to electronic administrative processes, but also a great way to get them set up and have ADP ready to go. So let's come back into our solution as administrators. We're going to talk a little bit about how this process communicates from an electronic I-9 perspective. I want to show you where that is stored. And then we're going to talk about some of those things that follow an employee's onboarding process, like benefit enrollment. So in coming back into the solution, one item I always like to highlight is, again, your ability to promote an electronic I-9 process within your system. So as onboarding is being completed, you're going to have an area where you are able to track these different items to completion, one of which will be that I-9. So you'll have an onboarding dashboard where you're able to not only see the current activities that are out there, but also the progress of those activities. So this will give you great insight into anyone that you may need to send reminders out to, or anyone that you may need to override if their start date or employment has changed. This will allow you to see specific documents that they may or may not have completed yet. And again, send out those reminders right from this screen. Lastly, we want to bring accountability to this process as well. So down below, you'll see that it will flag anyone who has ever entered into your system but was not assigned a paperwork activity. That way we can help to ensure that there are no gaps in this process and that individuals move from applicant to new hire to new employee as efficiently and effectively as possible. Now, when it comes to your I-9 process, again, like we stated earlier, you will have a management tool that not only will store your active documents, but also any that have been completed or any that you archive long-term for storage reasons. You also see that you have an expiring tab there as well to help ensure that any documentation that needs to be renewed can be done in a very efficient manner. And it also will have some compliance checks built in. So they will be unable to access Section 1, as that is the employee's responsibility, until it's been completed. Once Section 2 is available, the administrator can go in, they can obtain the identification documents for that employee, and really continue the process from there. You can review Section 1, send it back to the employee if a correction needs to be observed. If not, you're able to move into Section 2 in entering not only their identifying documentation, the tracking information behind it, and additional documentation if required. but you also have the ability to upload the copies of those documents here. And lastly, after completing the employer information and reviewing, you are able to submit either to your statutory compliance profile if you do not utilize E-Verify. But again, we do have the ability to partner with E-Verify so that communication for photo matching can be sent directly to them. So you are able to verify that information and complete the document with that E-Verify case and submission information in tow. Once completed, everything will then go back into the statutory compliance profile. So we did mention that earlier as really being a chief compliance area for your employees. You'll see that you have a block for your I-9 and citizenship information, and that is accessible here as well as in that dashboard that we just traveled from. So a great way to bring this process full circle. And again, we want to allow you to really take data, hand it off to the next steps in the process, so you're more in the camp of adding new or additional information and verifying what you already have. So let's just talk briefly around some of the next steps that a new hire may go through, which could be tied to a benefit enrollment process. So within Workforce Now, we have the ability to administer and manage your benefits for your employees to not only view, but also to participate in different events. You're going to have a benefits dashboard that allows you to manage these different events, from open enrollment to new hire to year-round types enrollment. I can also see my self-service registration. So that's a great way for me to know, hey, if I'm rolling out electronic open enrollment, I want to make sure that there isn't a single employee who is not registered to use ADP. But I also can see my open enrollment event specifically. I can view and remind employees who have not started the process, those who are in progress, and I also can view those completed enrollments as well. You will have a dedicated open enrollment center that you're able to really manage this event by itself. So that way, again, it can be a less disruptive event for you and your employees, allowing you to efficiently and accurately manage that process. Now, you'll see down below that we have the ability to not only bring in your benefit invoices, but you also see carrier approval in there as well. We do have the capability to perform what is called carrier connections, so we can communicate those enrollments directly to your carriers automatically after an event has completed. But we also want to allow you to take advantage of broker access as well. And that would simply allow your broker or partner in your benefit space to access a limited reporting functionality. That way they can get the census information that they need to effectively shop rates and plans for you and your organization. Of course, down below, because this is linked and part of your HR system of record, it'll let me know if we have any new hires who may have enrollments coming up here shortly. I also can see if anyone has been terminated from our employment. That way we know if we have to follow up with any of those related events that occur when an employee separates from us. But we'll also provide employee enrollment comparisons. Now, this is very important for your reconciliation process. Because we bring your invoices in, we want to allow you to compare those with your active system of record. That way you're able to keep your carriers honest. They do admit to a clerical error rate. So if someone's showing up on an invoice that was terminated a few months back, it allows you to contest that particular issue so that can be reconciled with your carriers. But a great way, again, to just have an additional reporting layer to ensure that your invoices match your active system of record. Now, when it comes to enrolling in these different processes, this is where your employees have two options. They have the ability to enroll in benefits from their mobile application. They also have the ability to come in. They can access the benefit space. And in both capacities, they not only have the ability to see their current enrollments and benefits, but they also have the ability to participate in any open or active events. So when I open my open enrollment piece, the first thing it's going to tell me is information that you may be communicating to me as an employee around what has changed, what I should be aware of, but also the ability to then go through and select my benefits based on what I am eligible for. I can compare plans, I can look at cost, and I can also determine the coverage level that I need for me and anyone else that I'm covering. So with that being said, now that we've established employees and we've allowed them to participate in some of these events, we can talk about time and attendance and payroll. So from a time and attendance perspective, we have the ability to capture time in a physical time clock. We have web-based options that can be supported on computers and tablets, and we also have mobile functionality. And these are all tools that you're able to use either very selectively or very broadly, depending on how employees are going to best enter that information for you and the rest of the administration. Time cards are always visible to employees, so they're able to not only view their time card, but approve it if necessary. And that's something that's completely up to you as an employer on whether or not you would like an employee to do that. You'll see, like everything in the system, they can look back at historical information, they can view scheduling information, as well as time off balances that may be aligned to them to use. But when it comes to visibility for our leaders, we promote what is known as a team dashboard. Now, this is a great place for leaders to not only manage exceptions and requests like time off requests or a missing punch on a time card, but it's also going to give you vital information for what is currently going on in real time with your workforce. So who's working, who's on break, who's possibly working later, are there any missed punches that I need to address? And this will turn your leaders into more proactive administrators, knowing that they can be notified when a missing punch happens, so it can be addressed at that moment rather than piling up towards the end of a pay period and having to go through multiple time cards to clean up those mistakes. It will always remind them of it, but by making them aware of it when it happens, it allows them to make those changes and address those issues as quickly as possible. We want to bring visibility to any time off, employees who are trending towards overtime, as well as the ability to quickly and easily approve time cards if there are no pending actions that need to occur. So that's another control that we want to put in place, and this will go all the way up to payroll, that we do not want time cards to be brought into payroll until they have been approved and corrected. So it's a great way to ensure accuracy when you perform your payroll process. Of course, scheduling, reporting, as well as specific insights for things like overtime can all be part of the time and attendance process to ensure that you're observing everything that you need to track with respect to your employees. Now, as we move towards the payroll process, this is something where, again, we want our time and attendance information, our payroll solution, all living under one roof. So as we move towards approving time, we are able to have that part of our payroll process from the very beginning. So we talked about the payroll profile that we referenced earlier that illustrated the pay settings for each of your employees. This is where we're able to illustrate the pay settings for your payroll process. So we want to, through implementation, customize your payroll spreadsheet, as well as the different things that you observe going into payroll. But you'll also see that your time and attendance information is simply waiting for you here to add to that payroll cycle. It will notify you to let you know, hey, we still have some time card errors out there, some time off requests that need to be approved, and those can all be leveraged by the payroll administrator if necessary, where at certain points, they may simply check the box, send out that friendly reminder to these leaders that they need to get in there, clean up these time cards, and make their approvals, or if they are not wanting to wait on those managers, they have the ability to come in, view each individual exception, as well as the scheduling information that they were supposed to support. And they can essentially come in here and drop in the value of when they were supposed to have clocked in or clocked out based on the circumstance. So again, just a really nice way for you to have complete control of your time and labor information before it impacts your payroll. Now, once reviewed, you're able to add that to your payroll cycle. And what it will do is it will then come into your payroll grid, where you are then able to have the hours that were collected by employees associate with the earnings that they will be making for that particular pay period, and that is accessible here. When you go into a payroll cycle, it is going to bring what we call a batch or your payroll spreadsheet into the payroll function. Now, keep in mind that you may be simply processing payroll, but if you needed to include a bonus or an additional earning, you can either build a column into your payroll grid, or it could be supported with a separate batch. So if it needs to represent a separate deposit, that's a great way for you to deliver essentially 2 payments to your employees, one for their regular pay, one for their bonus. But this screen is your input screen. So it's going to let you know from an HR perspective, did we add or subtract anyone that we should be aware of that we may or may not want to include in this payroll cycle? I'll see my hours and earnings below that with access to that payroll grid once again. And I also can see down below warnings and messages. So this is going to let me know, hey, we still have some time card errors. We still have pending time off requests, so I can address those where needed. When we preview our payroll, this allows us to go into our statistical summary information and our reporting information. So we are able to really manage the remaining steps of our payroll process before we hit accept and allow ADP to generate that payroll. And this is something that, again, will give you access to your reporting and statistical summary information without removing you from your payroll process. We want to have everything listed out here that you may need to access to successfully perform payroll. So you're able to spot and identify anything that may seem off, so changes can be made quickly and effectively before payroll is processed. You can turn on historical information. So if you want to view where your previous payroll ran, it's a very easy way for you to spot any discrepancies between the previous payroll and the current payroll. And then, of course, down below, we will break down that statistical summary so you can drill into the details of those specific areas, as well as access your register and downloading report area in the lower right-hand column. Now, this will not be a replacement for what we call our general ledger function, which essentially, upon completion of a payroll process, after we hit accept, ADP begins the money movement to your employees and fund delivery. We want to communicate a payroll file to our general ledger function. Now, this is going to be a tool under your reporting that's going to map your chart of accounts. So we want to understand your accounting program, and we want to be able to map those chart of accounts and accounting preferences. So when that report is processed, it is essentially identifying what those are and ensuring that everything is uploaded properly when brought into your accounting program. Now, for anyone out there who is using Sage for their general ledger, we do have a connection that operates a little bit differently. And what this will do is simply automate the process where upon review and completion of your different payroll files, you would be able to take your GL file, apply the Sage Intacct mapping, and create that GL file. And from here, you can directly transmit that to Sage Intacct. So you won't have to download the file and upload it into your accounting program. So again, that is one of the advantages to our partnership with Sage Intacct in being able to directly communicate that information from payroll to your accounting program. Now, as we round out things on the Workforce Now side, I always like to highlight that everything we discussed today is tied to reporting functionality. So that means that whether it's payroll, whether it's HR, whether it's recruitment or onboarding related, everything will be tied to your reporting functionality. We support, both standard reports as well as custom reporting like we saw earlier, and even a benchmarking and analytics function that allows you to take that reporting to the next level and also utilize ADP's access to data. Not only do we do the job report for the private sector, Wall Street, and the federal government, but it's also a great way for us to deliver annual compensation information and internal benchmarking around certain areas that you may want to understand better as to how you may stack up with other individuals in your industry. Now, just to review some of the final components around the Sage Intacct integration, I always like to highlight a particular view that identifies the different levels that you may use Sage Intacct for, whether it's expense reimbursement, time and attendance, or general ledger information. You can see that we want to promote a harmonious flow of information through an API integration that keeps both systems of record updated. Again, passing general ledger, employee data, expense reimbursement, and outbound time to Sage Intacct and allowing expense reimbursement inbound time and time sync information to come back into our system. So it, again, will help to promote the communication of information between your two systems to help support really a collective ecosystem among your different systems. But to Ashley's earlier point, this is specific to Sage Intacct, but we are also able to communicate and integrate with other ERPs or information systems if needed. And what we simply ask is that you schedule a conversation with us for us to review the systems in question so we can discuss how we can better tie those pieces together. So I know we have about 10 minutes left. I want to bring Ashley back into the conversation so we are able to answer some questions that you may have had throughout the conversation. And again, if you have any specific questions tied to you and your organization, this is a great opportunity for you in the future to reach out to us so we can schedule a one-on-one conversation to discuss your organization's needs further. But thank you all for your time. And with that being said, Ashley, would you like to jump back in so we can do some questions?
Sure. So thank you so much, Donald. That was amazing. And I'm sure you need a drink of water by now. I wanted to just point out a few things. What you saw today was a highlight of our technology. Again, it's called Workforce Now. If you did want to explore ADP's options, if you wanted to explore Workforce Now, we would definitely want to connect with you and hear from you what your needs were or needs are. And then we would configure a demonstration to your liking. So if you've seen ADP in the past, if you've had ADP in the past, if this looks different, it's because it's our version of what we wanted to show you today. I don't know if anyone has any other questions at this moment. I answered one already. Oh,
I'm not seeing any others come through, but don't hesitate to submit them. Thank you so much, Ashley and Donald, for today's presentation. And just a little bit about JMT before we go. We love helping nonprofits achieve their missions. So if you know of a nonprofit who could benefit from our services or solutions, please send them our way through a referral. As a thank you for helping us connect with them, we'll send you a $25 Amazon gift card. And if they become a client, we'll give you $500 for either yourself or a donation to your nonprofit. Just visit jmtconsulting.com/referral to learn more or submit your referral. And then thank you so much. I'm not seeing any more questions come through, but if y'all do have any questions, we can always answer those if you submit or just email us. But thank you everyone for joining today. I hope you have a great rest of your days.